just talking the whole time.
You guys, we're just gonna I just decided to hit record because Jason and I are just gonna talk for 6 hours and we want to bring you into the fold right away. I am with, and I say this in all seriousness, the legend and the myth that is Jason Somerville, JCarver. I have to tell you, so many times you come up in conversation with other people where there's like whisperings and murmurings of like, maybe he's coming back, maybe he's got a big project, I'm working with him on something, blah, blah, blah. But I also will tell you, just on the DL, since we started this in an informal way, that some of the best, coolest people of the most integrity, and also people that I think are just really down to just learn and figure things out and get stuff done, have been people that started with you and working with you. So I have to say, you definitely have either an eye for just good people or a way of like building people up. So here you
Yes, well, thank you. I have been lucky because my hiring process tends to be, do I like you and do I trust you? And then what can I figure out that you can do with me? So I have never been like a hunt for competence and then like the person. It's always been the opposite, which I would actually think is a flaw of mine, but has worked out pretty well. Yeah, so thanks. I think I'm more myth than legend at this point, but yeah, it's been an interesting few years since COVID, and I don't even know the last time I saw you. I have a
go.
picture of you and me at the Aussie Millions together, which feels like it was from 40 years ago. That I love, honestly, and yeah, since then you've been organizing poker, and I've been who knows
Let's
what I've
find
been
out.
doing.
This is what we're going to
Let's
find out. So,
we're,
like, we are
we're gonna find
complete
out today.
dinosaurs because I actually was watching, I was just before this interview going through as much, recent content as I could find. And it was like the COVID
There's not much.
WSOP. No, I know. And at the COVID
Yeah.
WSOP, people were like, hey, are you coming back? What's going on with Run It Up? Where have you been? What's been happening? Are you going to win another bracelet? And I was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
like 2,000 years ago again now. We're like so far
I
past
know, I
this.
know. I
So
think
tell
I
me
was gone
what's
from
going on.
I was gone from Twitch for about 4 seconds, and people were asking me, "Are you coming back?" And now it's been like 4 years, and I still get asked that. Not quite at the same rate, but at some point, it goes from being like annoying that people are asking, like not like if I'm gone for one day, it's like come on, But at some point, it goes from like like yeah, yeah, to like oh, it's sweet. People still like remember me and like care. So when I do emerge to play live poker, and there are still people who are like, "Oh, I loved running up Reno. When are you going to bring back running up Reno?" Or "I miss your streams," or "I learned playing poker from your streams." That's like awesome now because I just don't hear it very often. So now it's amplified. So if you do see me in the wild, it's cool to say hi. I had someone at a grocery store say hi to me, and I was like, "Wow, that hasn't happened in years." So it's like, okay, cool, nice, sweet. That's all you can do in life, Sarah. Is you try to say some things that are like 80% interesting and 20% useful, and then hope that that makes an impact on other humans. So
And at a
I did that for
grocery
a few
store
years.
is a huge, like for poker, getting noticed at a grocery store, I would say, is like that's super fame. That's you're still definitely relevant at that point.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know about relevant, but yeah, at the peak of the streaming career, it was unavoidable, right? Like it was at airports, and it did happen like at restaurants and things, like all sorts of crazy places, because at the peak of the streaming career, we were getting like an average of 4,000 humans watching at any given minute, which over the course of 8 hours is 100,000 humans cycling through. And I streamed 7 days a week for years. So we were serving, like, I think throughout my entire stream career, we served like 2 point something billion minutes of poker content. So millions and millions of humans got a little taste of my existence. So yeah, I mean, like I'm really proud of that, like legacy and the content I created and all the good we did for people. And running up Reno was awesome. And yeah, so ever since that whole thing has kind of like ended right before COVID, I don't know. I've been in a constant flux of doing not much. I don't know. Like, can I tell you truthfully? You know that once you get stuck into the poker world, you typically do very little things besides poker poker business, poker reading, poker study, right? Like that's typically what you do. And once I was off that train, I started to learn about plastics, and I learned about what the trees were in my backyard, and I did yoga, and I just did other things, and I just have read books about completely unrelated. I still wave my hands around like I'm, an Italian purebred man. But it's the Italian and the gay thing together. I'm always waving my hands around. You have like a splash zone around me. Anyway, yeah. So I just have been doing other things, and I don't feel like I don't really feel too regretful for that. But yeah,
No.
it comes at a cost of being a public attention whore, if I can say that
Well,
thing.
I think part of it is also though because you built such a community, both of the people who are following you in the content space and also a lot of people who were working for you in a lot of capacities. And there's just like a trail
Yeah.
of people who I think you were like I'm not gonna say you are like a cult or something, but like, I could see there could be some parallels. And
I
I
mean,
think
I
people,
have a tattoo on my arm. I think there's about 100,000 people that have a run it up tattoo somewhere, a
yes,
little robotic bird stamped to their body somewhere.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
they're missing their leader. Like, where is their? But I also would argue,
Yeah.
and early on in interviews we did where where I think you were really just starting to come up in the poker space and getting noticed, and interviewing Daniel about you, and um, I think every time you really dive into something, it feels like you do it to the 100 million%, which is not a real thing, but for
Yeah.
everybody,
It's a lot of
on
percent.
the yeah, it's like so it's got to be more than 100. Like there's got to be a way to make it more than 100. I know that's also not a thing, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think for those of us wondering what you're doing, it's more or less also because everything you do you've done so well and with such passion. But that also could leave some space for like, hey, I got to like recharge my batteries here for a second. I've got to like figure out if I can breathe,
Yeah.
do some yoga, these kind of things. Although that being said, I think I was talking to Jason Mercier like 2 years ago or something, and he had said he's really pumped the brakes and done a lot more in the sports betting space, and that's really
Yeah.
given him a lot more freedom, in his life. And he
Yeah.
mentioned that either you brought him into that or he had brought you into that, and that you. My sense was probably that you were very also invested in this, and that this is consuming a lot of your time.
Yeah, yeah, that's all definitely true. Yeah, it is tough, right? Because I always felt like my biggest competitive advantage was my work ethic, and that came at a cost, of course, in that I burned out. Whereas maybe if I didn't work so hard, if I had found a balance, that I could have just streamed through the pandemic, and especially given how strong the pandemic was for creators, that could have put me in a different stratosphere if I had just streamed through that. But I don't regret not. But I do think about like, did I squander the momentum? One thing I have learned is that when the boulder is rolling, the boulder is hard to stop. But when the boulder has stopped, it's very hard to get it to roll. So I'm kind of in that spot now where I'm a boulder on a plane, where to get it to not like a flying plane, but like a plane of like, with like mammoths and things roaming around. Yes, just to see the visualization. A boulder on a flying plane is a different thing.
Yeah.
But in any case, like it's tough to get it to move again now that I've stopped, because it's like, okay, to rebuild Run It Up Reno, like you've already alluded to, I had like 30 people working for me now. Right now I got myself, right? So it's like to rebuild Run It Up Reno is like, okay, I got to find a place. I got to hire 10 people. I got to hire my production crew back. I mean, I still have all the pieces and all the components to run Up Reno. Like I never sold all the production equipment. I never sold anything. I just put it in the closet effectively. So I could, and I always think about, how I should, but yeah, I don't know if online poker was booming in America. I always thought that I was always jealous or envious of Spraggy and Lex and these guys that, although not Lex anymore, but the guys that could do content from their own home country, their home like location. Whereas for me, when I went to stream, I went and got a rental house. It was me and my partner at the time, and we were just there for like 10 weeks straight. and I never left the house, Sarah. I
Yes.
never left the house. I went 79 days. I streamed 8 hours a day. During those 8 hours, the entire 79 days, I took 4 5-minute breaks within the broadcasts. So, like, I only 4 of the 79 shows did I ever take a break within the show. And during those 79 days, I only left the house one time, which was to go to the street to meet my weed dealer. And that was it. That was it. So, like, and I don't even smoke weed anymore. That's something else that I've evolved and improved. But in any case, like, back then, yeah, I mean, I just wanted it so badly. Like, I just didn't want to take a break because people were going to go watch somebody else. And I just refused to allow that to happen. So that's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it helped me really capitalize on the opportunity, but on the other hand, like, yeah, I caused myself some sort of, like, I don't want to call it trauma, but like when I think about streaming now, it's like my brain is like, I don't want to stream 182 days in a row. So all this to say, I've had one interaction with Elliot Roe, who has helped a lot of people in poker become their best self, and I pitched him on this idea that I was going to do, where I was basically going to lock myself in a situation for an indefinite amount of time and make content. And he was like, "Do you not understand? Like, you don't have to torture yourself in this way." He's like, "No wonder you're like not that excited about doing it, because you're just putting yourself back in the same sort of like, content cage." So I never did it, and ever since, the last few years, I've just been sort of yeah, writing recipe books more so than cooking. Let's put it that way.
Listen, I love that analogy actually. And I think it's funny because even sometimes I've had this conversation with some people where, like, if I did a bunch of interviews in a day, or like when I'm at a live event and it's just like you're on, where you're expected to just be on the whole time, right? Like, being charming and hi and nice to see you and da da da. And like at the end of a
Yeah,
day, I'm just dead. Like sometimes I would tell my husband, like, I can't even just talk to you because it's not like additive at this point. Like I have nothing left to give. And that is
for
such a
sure.
micro experience compared to what you're doing, like the streaming like that. And it is such a energy out that I could see how it could very easily take years to refill that bucket and to replace all of the like energy out.
Yeah, it's like it's tough because like when I was streaming, it was so awesome. Like there were so many amazing moments. Like we had 30 something thousand people concurrently watching me play a stud high low final table. Right? No one will ever break that unless Daniel Negreanu does it. No one besides Daniel could ever do that. And like as awesome as that is, it's like every question, there's so many questions, there's so many messages, so many people, just like there's a huge chunk of people that are just like nice and just like chatting and just expressing or asking questions, and then there's like the chunk of the loudest chunk, the crazy chunk, the annoying chunk, the business chunk. There's so many different, there's just people are just always asking. And so I definitely, that's kind of why I came to Vegas and kind of quit the streaming grind and started working on the Run It Up studio. So we had the home game place in Vegas. We had Run It Up Reno. I was trying to help the other streamers. I was trying to help PokerStars. We did the 24/7 channel. I was still doing the Aussie Millions, but we were helping other places to kind of live stream. But then when COVID happened and the PokerStars transition occurred, where they got bought by Flutter and FanDuel, that was sort of like a big turning point in my life. I had a conversation with the bosses at PokerStars in the beginning of 2019, and they said, "Look, we know this is going to be crazy, but don't worry. You, Daniel Negreanu, and Chris Moneymaker, you guys are locked in." And then a year later, we were all gone. you know,
Don't
so
worry. I call.
yeah, you know what that's like. The $1 billion promises are basically worth, not a lot. But yeah, so that once that whole thing sort of collapsed, it was just sort of the situation where we had COVID, we didn't have live events, we didn't have PokerStars, but I still had these like commitments to helping PokerStars in some way too, so we couldn't even like completely pivot. So yeah, it was kind of just sort of like it made sense to sort of shut it down, and then in the last few years, I've really just kind of focused on myself, and I don't. I have been, there was absolutely, because I write prolifically, so that I have absolutely noted many times that I was at the peak of my happiness in the last few years. So even though I might have been also very happy when I was streaming, I wasn't like miserable without it. The fame monster, Sarah Herring, like you create this thing, people want to be like famous and successful and whatever, but it's a monster. And you can't just do it and leave it alone. The monster needs to be fed. And when you feed it once, it just needs to be fed more, right? This is the Lady Gaga Fame Monster album. I have lived it. So even in this phase of my life, when I think about, I have 58 good ideas on a spreadsheet. I really do. 58 good ideas in a spreadsheet. But when I think about them, it's like, okay, so I could do them, but I can't do them in a way without being the guy, right? And I don't mind being the guy, and I have thought about it. And look, I might be the guy again tomorrow. You never know. But uh yeah, you don't just do one piece of content and say goodbye. It's like you got to do a lot, and you got to keep doing more. And if you're going to do that, you got to promote it on social media. And hey, if you're going to stream on Twitch, you really should make YouTube shorts, and you really should be posting on Instagram. And hey, you really should be doing this and really should be doing that. And next thing you know, you're feeding the monster. The monster is remade.
Yeah.
So yeah, that has got me into a bit of decision paralysis, I have to say, for the last year or so.
I like fully feel you in so many ways. And it is, and especially for someone like yourself who's never going to do something like just middle of the road mediocre. You're
No,
definitely, and you know the thing. That's it. It's like, just do it. Just go ahead and do it. And then it's like, okay, but if I'm going to do it, then like, okay, I also have to make the shorts. Okay, I also have to do the reels. Okay, like who's going to make my thumbnails? Like,
you know
it's just
exactly.
like never.
Yeah,
But it's interesting
yeah.
because, and obviously, like the impetus for my team being like, "Hey, did you see Jason's going to play an event?" is also like, when do you just sometimes dip your toes in to playing, and do you feel, you know, like you're still in a do you still pay attention to poker, like in
I
the
watch
midst of the
so
yoga?
much poker.
You do.
I watch so much poker. If you name a vlogger, I have at least seen one piece of content. I don't watch that many streamers, funny enough, even though I was a Twitch guy. The only streamer I really watch regularly is Kevin Martin, who's like my third best friend. So I really do enjoy his personality. But I still watch like Spraggy and occasionally some others. Giraffe Ganger. I don't even know how to say his name because he has so many hard G's in there. But I saw he won a bunch of money, and I've seen him stream, and he has a pretty good thing going. He was number one on Twitch when I opened it up the other day, so that's awesome. But yeah, it's like I still enjoy the game. I played the main event last year and got like 150th. That was super cool. I played the WPT championship in the fall. That was really cool. I cashed that event too. And I have been playing some of these cash games. Like when I was playing a bunch, live streams were not really a thing, right? Like Stones had one, but who else was really live streaming regularly? There weren't that many. And now, this day and age, there's so many live streams. The games are so good. People are obviously in there blasting. And so I started playing on Poker Night in America, was like one of the first ones last year. I had some fun playing there. And then in the fall, I got invited back to play again more with them, WPT, a couple of the games. So yeah, I have been enjoying playing, and I still I still watch a lot. I watch a crap ton of poker YouTubers, and yeah, I go through bursts where I like want to play, I want to learn, I want to study. But yeah,
I think poker's
I'm
like
not
that
sure
too. Like I think people like pull away sometimes, and then it like reinvigorates, and then it's more fun to come back. But I
for
wanted to ask you
sure.
actually because it was interesting as I was going back through some like old content and videos and stuff from you, there was this sense, and maybe like this shows like what a dinosaur I am, but there was this like JCarver, like he's this like young up and coming kid who just like totally gets content, and he's like in another stratosphere, he's like the next generation. And I was thinking how interesting and funny now because as I'm like approaching, the next
Yeah,
generation of content creators and trying to like bring them in, I was like, oh, how funny,
yeah,
like now we are the people who are saying like these are the young kids. And I was curious to get your thoughts
yeah,
a little bit on content at this point and where you see it going. And for example, like do you think that for a lot of people the way to see poker when you were Twitch streaming was like to actually see someone playing the hands with the cards up and all this was like Twitch was this
yeah,
really unique way to see that. And that now this like streaming, the way that they're doing streaming and as often and as frequent and with the personalities that are available in streaming, it's sort of like that, but like on steroids. It's like that times, 9 people, or it's a slightly different
yeah,
experience. But I'm curious. And then with vlogging and getting this more like what as
Yeah,
a
yeah.
content creator, like how do you see the space as someone who came from it and really like changed it as the young person
It's
then?
funny because Twitch streaming hasn't changed that much, right? Like Spraggy's stream looks like my stream, right? Like not that I was the original, not like I came up with anything super genius, but like streaming itself is pretty close to what it was when I left it. I don't see any innovations there, nor do I have any like great ideas to how you would make streaming better. If I came back to streaming, my advantage is not that I'm better at poker. Everybody else has even gotten better than me. It's maybe I'll make you laugh with my weird hand gestures more than other people, right? Like, or maybe I can add in some different elements of things that are about different things that I know that these guys don't know, right? My advantage is in entertainment, not really in like, I'm going to play ace queen offsuit better from the small blind. But yeah, the vloggers are doing awesome things, like guys like Frankie C and Corey Poker and these like super 22-year-olds who are just creating these like great storylines from their own point of view. Obviously, Brad and Andrew were the kings of that, and they brought Rampage and Mariano and these other people in, which is awesome. And then you have like, Hustler, and I mean, the Lodge and Poker Go doing live streams and live at the bike, and it's live poker has never been better, right? Like people just are playing a lot more live, especially in America. The overall viewership of poker is definitely I want to say it's up, but if you think about how many people are watching ESPN poker back in the day, the raw number and the reach of ESPN, maybe it was more in like the peak. But in terms of accessibility and how widespread it is and how relatively easy it is to have a good live stream, yeah, it's never been better in many ways. So when I think about coming back, I think about what can I do that no one else is doing, right? Because I I can go a couple ways in this. One, I think about stand-up comedians. And a stand-up comedian, when they first do their first set, when they're, 18, 20 years old, is still basically doing a version of that when they're 80, and they're just evolving their process. They're honing their craft along the way. They're not remaking the wheel too often. So is streaming like being a stand-up comedian in the sense that you can just be a better and better streamer as you go? Or is it something that's more like you're some sort of like a director and you feel like you have to create a piece of content that's sort of like unique and new? So like when I started streaming, it was that I was a Twitch fan and there wasn't really poker streaming, and I was like, okay, you could pair these things and it makes a lot of sense. So when I sit back to where I am now, I watch a crap ton of YouTube. It's like 90% of what I watch is YouTube, and then 10% sports. So like 90% YouTube. So I watch a lot of these popular YouTubers and I see what they're doing. And then I look at our YouTube community in poker and I say, you know what? There is a lot of stuff that's being done in YouTube that we are not doing in poker. The vloggers are all mostly derivatives of Brad and Andrew, right? If you've watched, I mean, of course, there are some unique people out there doing things, but generally speaking, YouTube poker is a vlog. So, what else can we do in YouTube, and how can you tell stories in a different way? And YouTube itself is just sort of like a very interesting beast to me, and so much bigger. If you look at Twitch poker right now, the category is like tough. It's like not doing great. So yeah, so all that to say, I've thought a lot about how to make great YouTube gambling content, particularly in poker and sports, and that's that's where I would think I could make the biggest impact from like an innovation point of view, and that's where most of my like momentum of putting ideas together has gone to, until you get to the point where it's a lot harder to do YouTube than it is to stream, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
that's what ultimately gets me to this back to the boulder situation, where I need like 6 editors to get the boulder moving, and it's hard.
Yeah. But it's interesting though, and that's actually in some of the conversations, for example, like that I had with Corey Eyring this year, and with lots of other creators, exactly what you're saying is there are tons of industries that are approaching content in a way that it feels like in some ways poker can be very far behind, and that there
For
could
sure.
be some like easy transitions. And I think even what Corey's doing in this like bankroll challenge or put my like all my life on the line or whatever type thing, it's like um, there's definitely ways. And also that like for example, I interviewed Wolfgang earlier this year, and
I saw that.
he right so he saw shorts and was like, let's do shorts, which is what like my
He's been
direction had.
crushing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And that's what my
Yeah.
thought was like, okay, we've got to just do shorts. Shorts are it, like let's go shorts. But then like Corey like chose totally to skip shorts, and actually what he's doing is also super cool. And I don't know that it's as easy to capture the audience, but in the like sort of insular audience that he has, I think it's probably extremely
Yeah.
loyal. And I would love, just personally, to see you delve into any of these spaces, but also something for example, for me, it's something I really want to learn more about sports betting. I don't really want to like sit around and watch sports, but I do think it's really interesting to understand how, maybe in the same way that I was interested in poker, like I would like to know how people are sussing out sports
Approaching
bets
it.
who maybe just
Sure.
don't want to sit around and watch it or whatever. But I'm sure there's like interesting, more storytelling ways to like get people like me who don't want to just like talk stats, but who am are like interested in the idea that you could make money doing something like this. Or I don't know.
Right.
Jason, help us.
You know,
Like, do it.
it's tough. It's tough with sports betting, right? Because like you know a lot of poker players, and some percentage of those poker players are losers, even if they are like top pros, right? In poker, maybe like 1 in 10 people win. In sports betting, it's like 1 in 100,
Is
right?
it
And
really?
the other thing that's tough about sports betting is that like if I tell you that hey, I really like the Knicks tonight, Sarah, and you take your pile of all that poker.org money and you go down to the casino and you bet the line, like the line moves and I might have cost myself a bet depending on, like, and never mind if you're doing content and I'm like, hey, I like the Knicks, and then the Knicks move, and then it's like, okay, it's a lot in poker. If I teach you how to be a good poker player, you're just going to go beat up those Texas games that I'm never going to get a dollar out of, right? So there is some sense of like being protective of your advantage in sports betting that is not quite the case in poker. And there is something like, in my opinion, something like a eight figure reward for the person that can make interesting sports betting content without showing the sport. No one has really done it, in my opinion. I do consume a lot of like sports betting podcasts, but those are nibbles, right? Those guys are not getting, they're not commanding audiences. And every sports betting company, including ESPN, I mean, all these places spend so much money to try to create compelling sports betting content. You like this, you're an idiot. No, I like this. No, I'm right. And here's the line, and go bet it here, right? So it's like that's people have been trying to crack that nut since probably five years ago, but it's hard. That honestly is one of my competitive advantages if I did come back, because I could mix poker and sports betting talk better than anybody for sure. There's no one can out talk me in actually almost anything, but no one can out talk me in that gambling blend. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I I have tried to come to peace with the potential strategy of just not overthinking it. Like I don't have to have a campaign planned out where here's what I'm going to create for the next 4 years. I don't have to have an ultra clear goal, and it's okay to try and just see what happens. And that's how I got involved with Poker Night in America. So I put out that tweet of me playing in that game. I just helped them for the last week produce, I mean, more like put together a week of games. So I just put together a 5-10 game, a 10-20 game, a winner take all sit and go, and a hybrid game where you started with $2,000. There was a $500 side bet, and whoever had the most money at the end of 90 hands got to win the side bet. So with the blinds rising every 30 hands. So I just wanted to try these things. These guys are close by. That is by far the most convenient thing for me, is that it's 10 minutes away. And I was like, okay, let's see what we can do together. And so that relationship of like helping them make content became a thing about like checking all of their processes and looking over their systems. And so I've been helping the Poker Night in America guys, and that has been my first real foray back into actually uh, creating in some way. And I've been enjoying it. I really have been enjoying it. And so I've really tried to come to peace with you know what? Maybe I'll just stream, just see what happens. I don't know. Turn the camera on. What's the worst thing that can happen, Sarah? No one's there. I'll just talk to myself. I talk to myself every day, right? It's like, what's what's gonna happen? So yeah, I don't know. I just think that's probably my best way, is just to like book some small wins and then see. I don't have to put back a 40-person poker event that has people from Sweden flying in immediately. I can do that later. So yeah.
I love that. And actually, I love Todd Anderson, and I think I would argue that that concept was sort of ahead of its time anyways, and has
For
like evolved
sure.
as it's moved to Vegas. But I think he always like he was inviting athletes and
John
non-professional
Hamm
poker
played in
players.
a game of theirs
Yeah,
once, like, come
yeah.
on, that's so cool. I had no idea about that until they told me.
Headman, dude, my voice. But yeah, it just seems like he
Yeah.
definitely was getting the like poker as entertainment, like not just strategy or necessarily money or whatever right in the beginning. And
Yeah, Heartland Poker Tour first and then Poker Night in America after that.
yeah, yeah. So I could definitely see
Yeah.
also where just like dipping your toes in there is solid. And you're what the game to be honest, I don't even know. I saw like you're playing in one of the games. Who are you playing with? Who are you playing against? When is this happening?
Yeah, so the game that we just there's two episodes on YouTube. I did the commentary for it also on the Poker Night youtube.com/ at Poker Night. They put up two episodes there. There's going to be more episodes going forward that have Phil Galfond and Lon McCarran as the commentators, who are obviously like talk about legends. And then I play in some of the other games. I don't know their exact release schedule. There'll be some on CBS Sports, but the games we just shot, like they're willing to just give me the live streams because they're not actually live. They're recording it and they're going to chop it up into episodes. And I'm like, wow, well, we have a 5 or 6 hour video. Like, just give that to me. Like, I think if I put that on stream, people would watch. Like, the difference between Hustler being live and Hustler being live on a 8 week delay is like no one knows.
Yeah,
It's like nobody's over there like, excuse me, I don't see Nick Airball at the table. There's
yeah.
nothing. No one's here. So I kind of think that would be an interesting blend. Because playing on WSOP.com is like, it's just like we can only do you only do so much playing on WSOP.com. So the idea of potentially mixing in some of that stuff and then just kind of playing around with some different ideas and seeing how well people reacted to different types of content. I could definitely see myself going to Canada this year or like Michigan, Pennsylvania. I do have a natural curiosity about what is regulated online poker like in the states that have it. I've never been to Michigan. I've been to Pennsylvania when I was like 12 at like a resort there from New York, and New Jersey I lived in for a little while. But yeah, what is it like? I don't know. I would be curious to kind of create sort of like a mini series where I went to these places, streamed a bunch, prayed to God that an editor fell out of the clouds that could help me turn it into shorts and other pieces. And I think people would like it, and I definitely think I would like it. And as long as I tried to take some breaths and did some yoga and talk to Sarah Herring once in a while, life would be fine. That's what I
Okay,
think.
I've got a couple of things on this. I know a bunch of editors just in case you need an editor. I don't necessarily know
Great.
one in Michigan off the top of my head, but I'm gonna
I
tell
don't
you
need one in Michigan. I need one that can
from
just respond to me any time of
yes,
day. That's
yes.
it.
Um, I spent some summers in Michigan. I worked on some movies in Michigan. This is what I'll tell you. I think Michigan
Oh.
is the Malibu of the Midwest. I think people are
Oh,
completely
wow.
missing it. Michigan has all this like gorgeous water line. You could probably get an Airbnb like on Lake Michigan. The problem is you probably don't want to be there in the winter, but that's whatever. I want to be
When
a
you don't
part of
leave
the
the house,
mini
Sarah, it
series.
doesn't matter.
Dude,
Yeah.
let me be a part of the Michigan mini series. I want to go with you as
Oh,
a
wow. We might be doing something right here.
yeah,
We might have just made it happen. Yeah.
59.
I
Add this to the
always
list of ideas, please. 59
Okay,
is
item 59 is the mini series in Michigan with Sarah. That would be great. Yeah, I mean, I lived in New York for a while and then Toronto is my number one Canadian city that I've lived in. So I would imagine Michigan is kind of similar to Toronto in both climate and general greenery.
just
So,
gorgeous. And Lake Michigan, it's like crystal clear for like 300 feet. Like you can see old shipwrecks at the bottom. It's a little chilly, but that's fine. Like you put on a swimsuit, like get in there for a
yeah,
few
you put
minutes.
out, yeah,
You'll pull it together.
exactly. I
Dude,
put on my warmest swimsuit, of which I have dozens, and
yes.
just, I'll be fine. It'll be no problem.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm just like I'm so happy to catch up with you. And honestly, I would say that with a list of 58 potential ideas, you are so far ahead of like the rest of us anyways still. That, like
Well, to be fair, if I said, Sarah, take 4 years off and write some ideas down every so often, you would also have 58 good ideas. You might even have 59. So,
you
yeah,
would think that, but I don't know. And I'm so excited to just see you like dip your toes back in poker in any way. To watch you play is amazing, but just please also keep us posted and let us at the org know how we can help facilitate, how we can help, if there's any way or any things that we can do to be a part of whatever your ideas are or whatever your future things are. If you're about to drop a stream, let us know so we can really get the sweat going for you so you can feel really nervous and uncomfortable about your like
Oh
return
yeah,
back.
that's
But
me.
yeah, we're all here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Careful what you wish for, otherwise you might be the camera woman over there. with the old school camera in Michigan.
You
That's it.
can't.
Watching me water ski in Lake Michigan, which is not going to happen. Yeah, you don't get to be this pale going outside and water skiing. Maybe you could do night water skiing. That would be interesting. But
Listen,
no, yeah, thank you so much. Of course, I love. Obviously, you've been one of my favorites since you were working at like 10 organizations ago. So now you're finally at the best organization, and yeah, you guys are doing great things. I've met a bunch of your colleagues, and everybody seems like good people. They're all creating content in interesting ways. I do love the organizer himself, of course, was your leader, was the one that started the PokerStars Twitch adventure with us years ago, basically, or at least was the one to carry the torch for us. So, yeah,
yeah,
of course, if I can ever help you, of course, I don't know what you might need, but if you need someone to be like, you look great today, Sarah,
I
that's
need,
me.
I
I
need
can,
that.
I can do that.
I
Yeah,
need
I can do
that.
that. There you go.
All right,
Sarah,
thank
you
you
go,
so
girl.
much.